I showed up to my cousin's engagement dinner, and my mom said go sit with the kids. Only grown-ups at this table. When the waiter handed me the bill, I said give it to the grown-ups at that table. I'm 32. And if you've ever been the family afterthought, the extra chair, the oh right, he's here relative, then you'll understand exactly how this story starts. My family has always had a strange talent, the uncanny ability to make me feel like I never quite belonged. I wasn't the golden child, not the troublemaker, not the baby. I was the placeholder, the one who showed up, smiled politely, and quietly picked up the check. I didn't explode or argue, I just existed, which in my family seemed to offend them more than anything else. It wasn't always like that. Growing up, I used to think we were normal. Dinners together, vacations, even some Christmas mornings where I felt genuinely happy. But somewhere along the way, maybe after my dad left, or maybe after my older brother started making six figures and my mom decided he could do no wrong, I stopped being part of the picture and started becoming background noise. I moved out at 19, put myself through school, and worked quietly up the ranks at a mid-sized logistics firm. Now I make good money, but you'd never know it from the way they treat me. If anything, the better I did, the colder they became. As if success was something I wasn't allowed to have, or worse, something they were entitled to benefit from without acknowledging the effort I put in. The latest insult came wrapped in white linen napkins and a $3,600 bill. My cousin Melanie, my aunt's youngest daughter, was having an engagement dinner. Not the wedding, mind you, just an engagement dinner, because apparently, proposing with a ring, you could probably see from space, wasn't enough of a spectacle. My aunt, who has never said a kind word to me that wasn't about borrowing money, decided it was going to be a family-sponsored event, which is code in our family for Josh is paying for it. I found out I was invited not from a call or a text, but from a forwarded email. No greeting, no hope you can make it, just the time, date, and location. And it don't be late, added in by my mom in the most passive-aggressive tone you can imagine. I stared at the screen for a while, debating if I even wanted to go. I hadn't seen most of them in over a year. The last time I did, my mom introduced me to a friend as the one who's still single, still renting, and still doesn't visit enough. She said it like a joke. I didn't laugh, but despite every fiber in me saying stay home, I went. I don't even know why. Maybe some small part of me still hoped they'd acknowledge me. Or maybe I just wanted to prove to myself that I was past caring what they thought. The restaurant was upscale, not quite Michelin-starred, but definitely out of reach for most of my family if they weren't pretending to be something they weren't. I showed up 15 minutes early in a navy blazer and pressed slacks, trying to at least look like I belonged. The hostess asked for my name, then gave me a confused look before handing me a plastic wristband. "Buffet wristband," she said, gesturing to a small corner near the back where a few silver trays sat under dim lighting. I blinked. "Isn't this a seated dinner?" She checked her list. "You're with the Gomez party, right? It says here, you're on the kids list." I gave her a tight-lipped smile, thanked her, and made my way inside. The room was bright, filled with laughter and clinking glasses. Long tables were set up in a U-shape around a flower-adorned centerpiece where Melanie and her fiancé were taking photos. At the head of the U was the grown-up table reserved for the so-called inner circle. My mom, my aunt, my brother and his wife, a few extended cousins, all seated, all sipping champagne. My chair wasn't there. "Josh over here," my mom called, waving like she was hailing a cab. She gestured toward a fold-out table with uneven legs in the back, surrounded by teenagers and younger cousins. "You can sit with the kids. Grown-ups are at that table," she snapped, tossing me a plastic fork still wrapped in thin napkin. I stared at it. My Aunt Linda, the one who still owes me $2,000 from 2019, burst into laughter. "Just be glad we let you come this time," she said, as twinkling with mockery. I didn't say a word. I took my seat. The conversations at my table were about TikTok's college rejections and who vaped behind the school gym. I sipped my water and nibbled on dry chicken that had clearly been sitting out too long. No one from the head table came by. Not once. I was invisible. At some point, my brother raised a toast to Melanie and Jason. "May your love be as strong as your Instagram game." Everyone laughed. I clapped once or twice out of politeness. I wanted to leave, but something stopped me. Call it curiosity, call it spite. I stayed. Toward the end of the night, while people were mingling and the DJ played generic pop in the background, the event manager walked over to me. He was tall, balding, and looked exhausted. He leaned down, checked a clipboard, and said, "Hey, just confirming you're covering the $3,600 balance tonight, right?" I blinked. Sorry. He flipped the page and showed me this was the agreement. $1,500 deposit already paid, and the remaining $3,600 is due by close. It's under your name. My stomach dropped. Who gave you my name, Linda Gomez? He said flatly. She said you were the one organizing the payment. Said it was your gift to the family. For a second, I couldn't speak. I looked toward the head table. My mom was laughing, swirling wine in a glass, while my aunt patted her on the back. I wasn't even surprised. I just felt empty, then calm. I smiled, stood up slowly, and pointed toward them. Ask the grown-ups, I said. The event manager raised an eyebrow. So you're not… No, I cut him off. I'm just the guy with the plastic fork. He stared at me for a beat, then nodded once and walked off. I gathered my blazer, straightened the sleeves, and walked calmly out the side door, unnoticed, unmissed. I didn't go home right away. Instead, I sat in my car across the street with the engine off, and the windows cracked just enough to hear the low thump of bass from inside the venue. I watched through the windshield as servers carried trays of half-eaten cake and glasses of Pruco. As families posed for one last round of photos in front of the banner that read, "Forever starts now." It was almost poetic. A room full of people celebrating love and family while simultaneously ostracizing one of their own like it was a group tradition. I should have been angry. I should have felt some massive burning surge of betrayal. But the truth, I didn't feel much of anything at all. Just tired. Tired of playing along. Tired of swallowing my pride for people who saw me as a wallet, not a relative. My phone buzzed once. A message from my brother. Nice of you to leave early. Mom says you're being dramatic again. I let out a dry laugh. Dramatic, right? As if being treated like a second citizen at a party you weren't even properly invited to. Then being slapped with a $3,600 surprise bill was just part of the family fun. That was the moment something in me finally clicked. Not a snap, more like a quiet shift, a decision. I pulled up my banking app and scrolled to the shared accounts I'd foolishly agreed to help manage years ago. You see, while my family had a habit of mocking me to my face, they had no issue linking their problems to my name behind closed doors. My mom's utilities under my account, she said it was just until she fixed her credit. My aunt's emergency dental surgery, I'd co-signed the loan. My brother's second honeymoon after blowing the budget on VIP upgrades. My credit card. They always said they'd pay me back. They never did, so I froze them. Not out of spite, out of clarity, I went one by one. Electric, gas, cable, mobile phones, all the accounts I was quietly paying for because family helps family. I turned them off, canceled them, removed my name, and in the cases where I could, scheduled official account closures. Then I opened a new bank account under a different branch and began transferring my funds out. Every single dollar gone from anything they could access. Then came the part that felt just right. I called the event venue. A polite woman named Clarissa answered. I told her I'd been listed as the payer for a dinner I never agreed to host. I asked if there was a signed document under my name. There wasn't. Ma'am, I said calmly, I never authorized that charge. I won't be paying it. And if my name is used again without consent, I'll be getting my lawyer involved. Clarissa stammered, apologized, and said she'd take it up with the woman who made the booking. I thanked her, hung up, and finally drove home. The fallout started the next morning. 7:12 a.m., my phone buzzed. A group text. Josh, the venue says the payment bounced. What's going on? 7:29 a.m. My mom sent a separate message. Why are the lights not working? Did something happen with the electric bill? 7:34 a.m. Aunt Linda, I'm being told my credit is frozen because of you. This is completely unfair. By 8:15 a.m., I had 27 unread messages, 3 voicemails, and 2 missed calls from my brother. But the real panic set in when Melanie the bride to be called me directly. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Josh, her voice was already tight, as if holding back tears. I'm so sorry about how you were treated. I didn't know they put your name down for the bill. It's just the venue won't release the photos until we settle and they say your name's on the account. Could you maybe just cover it and we'll sort it out later? I paused. I sat at a fold-out table. Mel, I said, my tone flat with a plastic fork. You posted 100 photos and I wasn't in one. Why would I cover it? She sputtered. I didn't mean to exclude you. I swear it was my mom and Annie Linda, and asked the grown-ups, I said, and hung up. That night, my phone blew up again, this time with a different tone. My mom started with guilt. I raised you better than this. Don't punish everyone for one silly misunderstanding. Then came my brother. You're overreacting. They're old. They joke around. Don't ruin the family over this. But then Aunt Linda escalated. If you don't fix this, I'm telling people you committed fraud on my accounts. That was the final straw. I screenshotted every email and document showing her consent. Every form she signed when I co-signed that loan. Then I sent them all to her, to my mom, and for good measure to my lawyer, who I said with a polite note. Hi, Mark. Just making sure you're aware of the threats being made toward me in relation to shared financial accounts. Silence for 2 days, not a single word. Then the apology texts trickled in. Weak once, conditional once. Sorry if you felt excluded. We didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. Let's just talk this out. But the best message, the one that truly made me sit back and smile, came from Clarissa, the event manager. She forwarded an email from my aunt frantically asking to put the remaining $3,600 on her own card. It bounced 3 times. According to Clarissa's note, the balance is still outstanding. We've begun adding late fees. I leaned back in my chair sipping coffee and felt a strange peace I hadn't known in years. I wasn't the wallet anymore. I wasn't the placeholder. I was just done. And then just when I thought it was over, just when I was getting used to the sound of silence, a knock came at my door. It was my mom, red-faced eyes puffy, holding an envelope. And that is where things really started to unravel. I stared at the door for a long moment before opening it. There was a part of me, small, childish maybe, that still hoped this was going to be the moment, that my mom was going to say something real. Something like, "I'm sorry. We treated you horribly. We took you for granted. We were wrong." But the moment I opened the door and saw her face, I knew better. She wasn't here for reconciliation. She was here for damage control. "Josh," she said, giving me a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Can we talk?" She held up the envelope like it was some kind of peace offering. I didn't say anything, just stepped aside, letting her walk in. She moved like someone who owned the place, like this was still her territory, even though she hadn't visited once since I bought it 3 years ago. She sat on the edge of the couch like she was perched on a throne that didn't fit her anymore. She handed me the envelope. I opened it expecting a handwritten note or a check. It was a printout of the venue invoice, unpaid $3,600 plus a $400 late fee. I looked at her. She cleared her throat, clasped her hands like she was praying, and gave me this carefully rehearsed sigh. I know things got tense. "But this has gone too far," she began. "We're family, Josh, and families don't punish each other like this." I said nothing. She continued. "Your aunt's credit is frozen. Your brother can't use his business card, and Melanie's crying every night because her photos are being held hostage. And for what? Because someone made a seating chart error." I raised an eyebrow. "A seating chart error?" She waved her hand like that detail was beneath her. "Look, we all say things in the moment. Your aunt made a joke. You took it too personally. Fine, but dragging this out, canceling accounts, calling lawyers, that's not the mature way to handle things." I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "You tossed me a plastic fork and told me to sit with the kids. You made me pay for your gas bill last month without asking. And then you put my name down for a bill you never told me about? That's not a joke. That's using someone." She blinked. "It's not like you can't afford it." There it was. That sentence. That thing they always fall back on. The justification. He has money. He doesn't have a wife or kids. He's fine. So let's take more. "You didn't even ask," I said quietly. "You just assumed I'd cover it like always." She sighed again, standing now trying to shift the dynamic. "I know we haven't always made you feel included, but you make it hard, Josh. You isolate yourself. You don't come to things. You never open up. Maybe if you tried harder, we wouldn't have these issues." Tried harder. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to scream. I'd spent years trying, showing up to events I wasn't welcome at, sending birthday gifts that got no thank yous, paying bills that no one remembered, and here she was turning it back on me like I hadn't done enough. Instead, I just looked her in the eye and asked if I had said no to the bill before the dinner. "Would you have uninvited me?" She didn't answer. Her silence was all I needed. She tried to pivot. "Look, I don't have the money to pay this. And neither does your aunt. The venue's threatening legal action. You want Melanie to start her marriage in debt?" I tilted my head. "So you do want me to pay it?" "No," she said too quickly. I'm asking you to help to do the right thing." I stepped forward, took the invoice, and slowly ripped it in half, not out of anger. Deliberately, slowly, a controlled break. Her mouth fell open. "Josh, I'm not your wallet," I said, my voice low but steady. "I'm not your safety net. I'm not your scapegoat. I'm your son. But I don't think you've seen me that way in years. She scoffed. So what? You're cutting us all off. Over a party, I shook my head. Not over a party. Over a pattern when I'm finally done participating in. She stood frozen for a moment. Then, like she couldn't handle being on the back foot, she reached for the classic script. The one she used when I was a teenager and didn't want to lend her my paycheck for groceries she never bought. You think you're so perfect, huh? You think money makes you better than the rest of us? You're just bitter. You've always been bitter. I nodded. Maybe, but I'm not broke and I'm not begging my son to fix a mess I created. That one landed. She stepped back like she'd been slapped, blinking too fast. Get out, Mom. She opened her mouth again, probably to say something sharp, something designed to cut, but saw the look in my eyes and stopped. She left without another word. That was 3 days ago. Since then, the silence has been deafening. No group chats, no late-night passive-aggressive messages, just stillness. I haven't heard from my brother or my aunt or Melanie. I imagine they're scrambling to figure out how to pay the bill. Or maybe they're too embarrassed. Maybe they're finally starting to understand that I'm not their backup plan. But last night, I got a new text from an unknown number. Josh, it's Jason Mulaney's fiancé. I think we need to talk. I didn't know half the stuff they did to you. Please meet me. That threw me. Because Jason was never really in the mix. He always seemed quiet, just going with the flow. If he's reaching out to me, something's changed, something big. And if I know anything about my family, they're not going down without a scene. I debated for a long time whether or not to respond to Jason's message. Part of me felt like it wasn't worth it, that whatever he had to say would just be more of the same excuses, deflections, half apologies. But another part of me, the one that remembered all the years I sat through birthdays alone at the kiddie table and paid bills behind the scenes, like a ghost accountant, wanted to hear it. Maybe not for closure, but for confirmation. I needed to see with my own eyes whether there was anyone left in that tangled mess of a family tree who still had a shred of decency. So I told him to meet me at a local coffee shop, neutral ground, public, no drama. Or so I hoped. He showed up exactly on time, dressed in a clean button-down and jeans. He looked nervous, which surprised me. Jason had always seemed laid back, almost detached from the rest of the family circus. He was one of those people you didn't notice until he spoke, and even then you weren't sure he had anything to say. But as soon as he sat down, I could tell something was different. His shoulders were tense. His hands clenched the coffee cup like it was anchoring him. Thanks for meeting me, he said quietly. I nodded, waiting. He looked around like he wanted to be absolutely sure no one else could hear, then leaned in slightly. I just need to say something. I didn't know. Like I truly didn't know what they were doing to you until recently. I said nothing, letting him keep going. When Melanie first told me about the engagement party, I thought your name was on the invoice because you offered. She told me you were covering it as a surprise gift. That's what your mom and Linda said too. I didn't question it. He shook his head. But after the party, when everything blew up and I saw how upset Melanie was, I started looking through the emails. I saw the invoice changes, the name edits. The part where your aunt forwarded your contact info to the venue without your permission. My expression didn't change, but something in my chest tightened. I already suspected it, but hearing it confirmed that they deliberately changed the invoice to put it under my name still made me feel like I'd been punched in the gut. Jason looked genuinely ashamed. I confronted Melanie. She broke down crying, said she didn't want to ask you to pay, but her mom told her you wouldn't mind that you had money and this was your way of being included. Melanie tried to believe it, but when she saw you sitting in the back, she knew. She still didn't do anything, I said flatly. I know, he whispered. She regrets it. But the worst part, after you walked out, they all started laughing. Like it was some prank you didn't take well. Your mom said you always made things about you. Your aunt called you Mr. Credit Score. I felt my jaw clench. Jason noticed. That's when I realized, I don't want to marry into this. That caught me off guard. What do you mean I called off the engagement yesterday? He said, eyes down. Melanie's devastated. But I told her if she couldn't see what was wrong until it exploded. And if she was okay with treating people like that, then we had bigger problems than a party. I leaned back in my chair, absorbing it. I didn't expect him to go that far. She said she was raised to think money meant love, he said bitterly, that whoever paid cared, and if you didn't pay, you didn't care enough, and I told her that's the most backwards thing I've ever heard. He paused. I'm not here to ask you for anything, Josh. I just wanted to say I'm sorry and that I saw it, all of it. You're not crazy. You weren't being dramatic. You were being used. I exhaled slowly. For the first time in a while, I felt something loosen in my chest, like I'd been carrying around this invisible weight, and someone finally acknowledged it existed. Thank you, I said simply. We didn't talk much after that. He left quietly, and I never saw him again. But word travels fast in our family, especially when someone does something scandalous like canceling a wedding that's already been posted about on social media for 6 months. The text came back in waves. My mom, are you happy now? You ruined Melanie's life. You embarrassed us. My brother, you seriously need help. No wonder you're alone. At Linda, you'll regret this. One day you'll need family and we won't be there. To each of them, I replied the same thing. Good. I blocked them all after that. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel conflicted. I just felt done. Like a door had closed, and I didn't have to keep knocking, hoping someone on the other side would finally let me in. In the weeks that followed, I went through every remaining tie. I sold the car I'd co-signed with my brother. I closed the emergency credit line my mom had access to. I even canceled the joint Spotify account they were all piggybacking on because honestly, if you're going to cut someone out of your life, cut all the strings. And something amazing happened. My life got quiet. No more guilt-tripping phone calls. No more vague invitations that came with unspoken price tags. Just peace. Real peace. I spent more time with friends. Real friends, the kind who asked how you were without needing something. I picked up an old hobby again, photography. Started hiking on weekends. Learned to cook something other than pasta and eggs. I even began volunteering once a week at a local shelter, helping with logistics and donation drives. It felt good to do things for people who appreciated it, not expected it. And then one Sunday morning, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, but the handwriting was familiar. It was from my grandma, the only one in the family who had always treated me with dignity, who lived in a small town 2 hours away, and hadn't made it to the party due to health reasons. The letter was short. Josh heard about the party, heard what you did. Good. You deserved better than them. Always have. Come visit me. I made your favorite cookies. Love, Grandma. I laughed right there at the mailbox as the wind whipped the edges of the paper. And that night, I drove to her house with a smile on my face and a full tank of gas paid for with my own money, for once, just for me. No plastic forks, no kiddie tables, no bill at the end, just a chair waiting by the fire next to someone who always knew my worth, even when the rest of them pretended not to. I wasn't the placeholder anymore. I was finally free.